Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. This podcast is ran by two ladies who play games, shout profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
I don't think we show profanities on the show, but we definitely mumble and yell them.
I meant to say shout. Did I say show?
Yes.
Never mind. We don't. Sorry, guys. You will not see any profanities. That'd be a cool trick, though.
Anyways, welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. My name is Jenn.
My name is Emily, and we are back for another week of the show. What have you been up to, Jenn?
Work, and more work. What's new? Nothing, because I only work.
Yeah.
Work.
Relatable and same. And that's boring, though, so we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, it is.
So when we're so here's a thought. Here's a thought that I had when we were recording our last episode that I was going to ask you, and then I forgot. Because we, for our dear listeners, we do record ahead of time because, believe it or not, full-time jobs take up a lot of time. It's kind of weird. And so when we're recording, the Super Bowl just happened. And how did John react? Like, your husband, I don't know if you want to bleep out his name. I don't know if we need to bleep out his name. That's besides the point.
I've said John before.
That's besides the point. What did he do for the halftime show? Because I feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, like 8 or 9 months ago, when Kendrick came out with this diss track, he was like eating that shit up. And then fucking Kendrick out here comes out of the Super Bowl being like, "Hey, Kanye." And I was like, oh.
Hey, Drake.
Hey, Drake. I like how I said Kanye. Hilarious. No, hey, Drake. And then I, like, in my bones, deep in the roots of my soul, I was like, I feel like John's out here somewhere just losing his fucking mind.
Oh, man, it was a good night to be at our house.
Yeah.
We both watched the Super Bowl for the first time. Like, I kind of watched. I didn't really watch the football
quote unquote
part. He did.
Watch
but, like,
the Super Bowl. Yeah.
I was there for the vibes. I organized my sock drawer while he watched the football. Yeah. But we both watched the halftime show. And yeah, it was so hype because Kendrick looking directly in the mic, smiling down the barrel, being like, "Hey, Drake, I hear like I'm young."
Yeah, because I just saw the clips afterwards because I've never once in my life ever watched the Super Bowl. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the day of, because my husband's out of town for work, I had to do some additional stuff for work, so I couldn't have anyways. But I just saw the aftermath of him being like, "Hey, Drake," and I was like, oh, like, not only did he do a diss track at the Super Bowl, which is crazy already, but to call out the motherfucker he wrote the song about is unhinged. And I love him for it. I love his little bell bottoms when he's like spinning around the camera. The whole thing was just crazy.
It was so good. It's a level of pettiness that I aspire to be. Like, I feel like I'm a hater, but like, I realized in that moment I'm not enough of a hater. Like, I could be more hater-esque.
Yeah, I want my hate and my haterism to be so powerful it becomes an art form. It becomes art.
It wins me Grammys and I sing it at the Super Bowl. Like, that's iconic.
The whole thing just, I could not even believe it. But I knew he would be flipping his lid over it. And then, there was something else about that specific thing where I was like, I gotta ask Jen how that went, because I feel like John would have ran out your patio door and did a lap around the block and then came back from excitement.
It was good. We were both dancing and singing along, so it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I've just been walking around our apartment, like, looking at him dead in the eye, smiling, being like, "Hey, Drake, I hear you like I'm young."
No, you need to do it with, like, the little, like, the lean and the little shuffle with the pants on the ground, like the little cuffs hitting the ground.
Oh, trust me, I have been.
Yeah. Well,
I have
right?
been.
I don't know. The whole thing is just, like I said, it's art. It's art, and I will not ever. Well, that's not true. I am not tired of it. I see those videos, and every time I'm like, let's get them through, Kendrick. Let's go.
See, I was gonna send you some, but then I was like, I don't know if Emily, like, it's not like, I feel like it's not super your thing. So I was like, I don't know if she's like knows the reference to this or like has seen it.
I educated myself on the Kendrick thing, but I'm still not big on sports. I did see on TikTok you reposted something about Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl, and I really wanted to understand what was so funny about it, but I didn't.
Okay, so Taylor Swift is dating Travis Kelce, right?
On the Chiefs.
So she was,
and the Chiefs were there.
Which the Chiefs lost to the Eagles.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, because I saw a video of him like in a sparkly lounge set leaving the stadium, and I was like, oh, I think that's Taylor Swift's man.
Yeah, his sparkly little leotard. Yes. But anyways, so she was like standing in her box or whatever, like on the railings, like watching, and people were comparing it to that scene from High School Musical 1 where Sharpay is like on the railings being like, this is not what I want. This is not what I planned.
Gotcha.
And I just gotta say, I do not understand.
I understand now. Because, like, I thought I recognized the song, but I honestly haven't seen High School Musical enough to, like, be able to pick that off, like, right off the bat. And I was like, I don't understand what's happening. But it's clearly so funny.
I feel like it was the right collision of things that are within my lore.
Of your realm. I know. I actually think a lot about how there's a bunch of things that I repost now on TikTok. Because I decided to get confident with that, I guess, and just if I have the whim,
just bro for it.
I go for it. And I was looking through my repost list, and I was like, I am quite the character. I'm like, I wonder what exactly is being advertised to my friends and family on my reposts.
I see so many that you and our other friend post. The nurse, and I'm just like, it's so interesting, like seeing like what shows up on their like pages and what they find like worthy enough to like, yes, I want to repost this,
right? Well, and a lot of it for me anyways, when I was looking through my stuff, is niche or vibes or something that I just find like really funny, but I know when I'm reposting it that it really is just me that finds it funny. I just also find joy in torturing other people.
Sometimes like I don't see that like it's like been reposted by you right away, and then so I'll like go to send it to you, and then I'll see that you reposted it, and I'm like, never mind.
My favorite has been when I send videos to the nurse, and then the nurse reposts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I win.
Yeah,
because I sent it to them first, and then I'm like, I win! I did it. I made it onto their repost list.
That's happened to me as well, and I'm like, yay! I did it.
I feel like our friend the nurse would love finding out that their pod name is the nurse.
The nurse.
Oh, that's good.
He would be okay with it, I think.
Right? But as for updates from last week, pretty much the same. I'm still thinking about Soulless every day because I'm in love with that bald elf, and I fight for my life regularly. And that is it. That is all I have to share with you. Should we get into our wheel of questions?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
What is the scariest thing underwater to you?
Literally everything. The piece of seaweed that touches my foot. I'm so fucking scared right now.
The one sharp rock I didn't know was there because I can't see it.
Literally, if I can't see it, I'm afraid.
That's fair. So then if you had to pick what the one scariest thing you think is underwater, what would that be? Because I feel like this is definitely something we've addressed on the show about how you and I are like already big no-nos about underwater stuff.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to go with, like, the things that are actively going to, like, eat/attack me. You know, a killer whale, a shark.
Yeah.
Some weird deep sea creature that's come up from the depths.
All of the piranhas that swam out of the river and are now in the ocean. Or no, I didn't even say ocean. That are just underwater. All of the piranhas then, because they technically live underwater.
Yeah, just all the piranhas. Every single one. What about you?
I think that saying things that actively want to attack and hurt me, I mean, I feel like that is a given. But also, I feel like if I had to pick, like, one thing that I would say is, like, the scariest thing ever, I really hate...
dolphins.
No. Though they are freaky. I feel like I used to like them more as a kid and not so much anymore.
Well, they're rapists,
yeah, that'd be why.
And I will continue to spread that messaging no matter how many times.
Because it's important, and we all have to know. It. I feel like if I'm thinking about a situation that would be the scariest thing to happen underwater, I do really hate, because I spend too much time on the internet, so I read about both these situations. There was a girl who was swimming for a research team in the Arctic and was grabbed by a leopard seal and pulled to the bottom of that part of the ocean they were in. And it literally, like, because your body can't handle pressure like that, right? Like, and then, she was, like, dead instantly. But I was like, the thought of something grabbing me and pulling me to the, like, depths of the ocean, horrifying. Or remember when there were those, like, billionaires that went to a submarine and then they, like, their submarine, like, and, like, shrunk and combusted or whatever that was? Imagine that. But it's, like, in the part of the ocean where there's no light because light won't reach to a certain depth. Like, imagine you were in a submarine going down to go look at stuff because you want, like, looking at stuff is cool or whatever. And then you just, like, and combust in the middle of darkness. You'd be dead instantly.
I think that's what happened to them. Because they're being controlled by a PS3 controller or something.
Well, because I thought that it was that they made it to the Titanic. Because the Titanic is not, like, in the dark part of the ocean, right?
I don't know. I just know that their ship was being controlled by, like, a PS3 controller. And that they exploded trying to see the Titanic.
Maybe it was an Xbox. But I do remember that. No, I remember it was one of those third-party controllers for a PlayStation or something. Like, it wasn't even, like, a branded controller.
They couldn't spring. They couldn't spring for the branded controller.
It just was the shipping. The Amazon Prime next day shipping wouldn't be there in time.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I don't know. Definitely lots of things. I feel like the more... Actually, you know what? With underwater stuff, the more I learn, the less I want to know. I actually am okay with other people going underwater and checking it out. I don't really feel the need to be there. I'm good where I am.
Like, part of me really wants to go scuba diving and, like, explore, but then the other part of me is like, dark and scary down there.
See, I feel like scuba diving to go look at, like, a tropical reef is one thing. Scuba diving to explore a sunken pirate ship is a different thing.
Or, like, the underwater cave system.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. I hate regular caves. You know what? I changed it. Next, the actual scariest thing underwater is underwater cave systems that people seem to feel the need to climb inside of. What are you, a rat? A mole? You don't belong there. Get out.
Emily feels very passionately about this.
I'm very passionate about caves, but we could talk about that forever. I'm going to spin for the next question. What is your favorite underwater creature to eat?
Salmon or tuna?
Both great options.
Probably salmon.
I was going to say, if I had to pick one for you, based off the history of my life of knowing you, it would be salmon.
Oh, So fucking delicious. Emily keeps talking about going to omakase, and I'm just like, I just put some raw salmon in my mouth right now.
Feed it to me raw. That's what I want.
I want it raw.
Yeah, literally. For me, for the longest time, I used to say shrimp. I'm actually not a big shrimp girly anymore after I got diagnosed with high cholesterol and I had to not eat shrimp for a long time. I think that my favorite underwater thing to eat is probably nowadays tuna.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go through my
so good
Rolodex of seafood that I've eaten.
Fish.
And I do really like fresh oysters now. If I was to pick a shellfish. I'm not a big shellfish person anymore, I think. I don't really like crab or lobster.
Yeah. I like the simple fish. So I love a good salmon, I love a good tuna, I love a good cod,
I do like swordfish. And I do also really like mackerel in very small doses because it's kind of salty. I
like mackerel as well. I find it delicious.
Yeah, but I couldn't eat a bunch of it. Tuna though, especially red belly tuna. All day, every day.
I could eat a fuck ton of salmon. I could just eat
the river.
My weight in salmon.
It'd be you and the salmon run. When the bears are out in the river, grab them out of the air.
The bear.
It would just be them. And then you on the other side of the river grabbing them out of the air. Lunch.
That's my dream.
I can really see that for you. I would also be there being make sure you grab one for me too, Jen.
Please. I want some too.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think deep on other things that I've eaten. I guess this isn't technically a part of the question, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. What's your least favorite underwater creature then to eat?
Shrimp.
Really? Your least favorite is shrimp?
I don't know. I recently, on the last show I was working on, I have been vegetarian for many years. I recently had gone pescatarian to expand the options because they do catering at work, so we get fed a bunch of times a day or whatever. And I found over the years that the vegetarian meals are shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? We're expanding to pescatarian meals. And instead of any variety, I got shrimp every day for 3 months. And I don't think I can ever eat a shrimp again.
Well, that's not good anyways, because that's literally how you end up with high cholesterol, because that's all the shrimps are.
I know.
The shrimps are little underwater bugs full of cholesterol. They are not good for you.
I couldn't even eat them at the end. I just wasn't even eating my lunch because I was just I cannot eat another fucking shrimp.
Mm-hmm. You're if
Please,
I open up the
something
stupid
else.
box and I make eyes with another shrimp, this city's gonna burn.
To the point where I was yeah, I'm not a vegetarian or a pescatarian anymore. I'm just gonna eat regular meat.
I thought you were gonna say I eat nothing. I'm fasting. Honestly, though, that's fair. I feel honestly, I've had things ruined for me before simply because I just had it way too much, even when I was traveling and stuff. So, yeah, I get it. I think if I had to pick a least favorite underwater thing, cuttlefish.
I've never had that.
See, cuttlefish, it's not the flavor. It is the consistency. Imagine trying to eat a balloon that somebody stuck a bunch of floss into, and they were yummy, this is so tasty. Have more. That is what eating cuttlefish is like.
That sounds horrible, and that's probably why I've never had it, is because you've told me that it's terrible.
Yeah, it's and I am a believer that, an acquired taste is a thing, especially with a lot of different foods. Cuttlefish is one of those ones where I had it once and I just knew deep in my spirit that I would never eat another one of those things. Because I was like, because I like looked it up too. I was like, did I just get like a bad cuttlefish? Like what? Like who would want to eat this? This is barely edible.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, this is like what the acquired. The consistency leaves much to be desired. However, it is acquired cuisine. And I was like, I'm good. I've acquired enough. I feel like I really like octopus. That would be another underwater creature that is up on my favorites list, actually. I would say tuna and octopus is definitely in the top 3. Cuttlefish, bottom. Whatever the bottom number is, that's what it is.
Feed it to the caves.
Yeah, leave those cuttlefish in the caves. They are who should be in there. But I would be open to trying some there are some things, though, with where we live that we just won't get the option to try. I would love to, on a trip sometime where it's in a more coastal region, have the opportunity to try, like, sea urchin, for example. I've heard that's really good. Some of these other things, I would be interested in trying more things. Just from what I've tried, that is what I have.
That's fair. There's limited options in the prairies of Canada.
Yeah, pretty much in the middle of nowhere, actually, but it's fine. I guess.
It's so fun.
It's so fun. All right, let's spin for our next question. What's your least favorite thing about Vancouver?
That's hard because I love a lot of things. Actually, I know. My least favorite thing about Vancouver is the rent and housing prices.
Touché. That's a good one.
That is the only reason why I do not currently live in Vancouver.
It is redonkulous. That's so funny. It did not even cross my mind, the housing prices, when I feel like that's like the most obvious thing about Vancouver, especially for our age group. When I was thinking of least favorite things about Vancouver, I was thinking like, I don't like the wet cold. Like I feel like the West Coast gets...
Oh, I love the rain.
Like I love rain. It's the specific kind of cold that they get there because it's so humid that it, like, gets under your clothes and, like, into your bones. That thing I do not like. I would prefer a dry cold.
See, it's the housing prices and the distance from you.
Pookie! Yeah, that would be the other thing, too, is if this was in a world where you lived in Vancouver, then that would be my least favorite thing because I am starved for your attention and that would make me severely unhappy. But I guess I'd have to deal with it. I wouldn't want to, but I'd have to because I love and support you and you can do whatever you want in this world. But I don't want...
Love you, Pookie.
But that doesn't mean I have to like it either. Love you! Okay. Sorry, I totally was like lined up to say something. Completely forgot what it was. I think it was another least favorite thing about Vancouver. The traffic, I guess, I don't love either. But that's kind of like anywhere, though.
Going to that Costco and right by the stadium was probably one of my least favorite.
Yeah, because all those people were yelling at me with your wedding flowers all loaded up in a cart. And you were nowhere to be seen. The wheels were locked. I had to carry this cart on my back for you. Not actually. It kind of just felt like it. I had to figuratively carry this cart on my back for you. That was so bad.
You know what? It's fine.
It's fine. All right. Let's spin for our last question. So then what's your favorite thing about Vancouver?
Oh, the ocean, the mountains, how pretty it is, the rain... The vibes, Nat's coffee. Ah, so good. The food, the variety, all the shops, the people, the places, the things. I love a lot about Vancouver.
Oh, yeah. I'm very big for the culture, like the food and, like you were saying, the shops and stuff. I do really love rain. Like, I might not be a fan of, like, the wet,
bagels.
Cold. But, like, there's just, I don't know. There's something about, like, just... It's like you said, it's the being on the coast. It's the mountains. It's all these different things. It's beautiful. You're basically in a rainforest. Like, that is what the environment is like, and it's nice.
I think what I love most is that you can literally go from like big city downtown vibes to literal rainforest vibes to beach ocean vibes to hiking mountain vibes within like a 30-mile radius of each other.
Oh, absolutely. And not to mention, a lot of the houses there too are just beautiful. Like, I get it, like, the housing thing is terrible and everybody wants to live there and all these things, but when you're driving through there and you get to see like some of these older houses, they look like Victorian mansions. It's crazy. And then it's got like the because when you and I were there last, it was in the fall, and like the trees actually get like red leaves. There's color, like unheard of, and not that much snow. Which, where we live, so much snow, so much snow.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the vibes of Vancouver. I would love to live there if I was a millionaire.
Yep, and if you were a millionaire who lived there, I would insist that you send me a lox bagel from that bagel place that you and I went to every day so I can have one for breakfast. And then show off to everybody.
Bestie, if I was a millionaire living in Vancouver, I would just like be like, okay, you're going to fly out next weekend.
Yeah. See, wouldn't that be the life, being like, hey, don't worry about it. I want to see you. Guess what? You're coming to visit me. And I'd be like, hell yeah. I wouldn't even complain. I'd be like, oh, I wasn't doing anything important anyways. Be there in 10.
See you soon.
Oh, that does sound really fun. If only. Maybe. They say manifestation's real. Maybe one day.
We're manifesting that for
right?
2027.
Hell yeah, brother. All right. So, those are all the questions I have for you today. Can you take a guess as to what my story is for you? And full disclosure, listeners, I did let her know that it is a cryptid we are covering today. So your job for guessing is, can you guess which cryptid? Or what is the, like, aura of the cryptid?
Is it the Canuck cryptid? An underwater Canuck cryptid?
No. Underwater, yes, obviously, because my questions were all underwater questions. But not a Canuck.
Some sort of Vancouver underwater cryptid.
Yes. And now, full disclosure, this is a Vancouver and Vancouver area cryptid. So this does also encompass Victoria and some of these other places.
So is it like Pacific Northwest cryptid, or is it like Canada specific?
Canada specific. But definitely that particular region.
But not the Ogopogo.
Not the Ogopogo.
I don't know. Tell me all about it.
All right. So we'll see if you've heard of this guy before, because I feel like once I get into it with how much you've traveled to Vancouver, it's possible that you've seen something about this before. But here's my description. So, Cadborosaurus, nicknamed Caddy by journalist Archie Wills, is a sea serpent in the folklore of regions in the Pacific coast of North America. Its name is derived from Cadboro Bay in Greater Victoria, British Columbia, and the Greek root for saurus means lizard or reptile, if you were curious.
I've definitely heard of this. I've never looked into it though, so I know no information, but I've definitely heard of this.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, Cadborosaurus, what the fuck? And then you hear Caddy and you're like, oh, yeah, that feels that sounds familiar. But for me at first, when I was doing my notes, so it's so interesting to me because there are live cameras that people have put underwater to track and find Caddy that you can watch online, like live streams.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm just going to get into this story because I didn't know all of these nuances and details about Caddy. I fully thought this was just kind of like a lesser known Ogopogo type thing, because I feel like I've heard about the Ogopogo a lot, especially as a, Canadian person who has an interest in myths and legends and cryptids and whatever, what have you.
Yeah.
But there are quite a few, there is some interesting information here. So we're going to take today's episode and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this Caddy guy.
All right, well, take it away.
All right, so Caddy came to broad public attention in the year 1933, the same year as Nessie, its Loch Ness cousin. Archie Wills, the editor of the Victoria Daily Times, seized on reports by people he considered as reliable witnesses to feature, in imitation of the English press, a local sea serpent. Intensive coverage of local sightings started October 5th of that year, stimulated in an avalanche of responses about earlier appearances, opinions about the nature of the beast, and a contest to name the monster. So, while this is kind of like the official breaking out of its cage kind of scenario, Caddy with being the same year as the Loch Ness monster, there's like a few people I saw online who said that they have relatives, or there are reports of people talking about seeing a sea serpent before this. They just didn't really. It was kind of like the Loch Ness monster kind of was like, oh, we've seen a sea serpent around here too. That must be a real thing, since we're seeing reports of the Loch Ness monster, and that's kind of why it's looped in together.
I see. Is there like any crossover between the two? Like, do people suspect they're the same, or do they know, or is it like more like they are definitely separate entities?
So people feel like they're two separate entities, but they might be. There's quite a few people who theorize that it could be the same species of whatever it is, of sea serpent, I guess. Because kind of like when I talked about the Loch Ness monster in our previous episode where we discussed this, there are quite a few people who feel like the Loch Ness monster might be a plesiosaur, like a dinosaur that has just managed to live as long as it has, or is a part of a community of plesiosaurs that navigate using underwater networks and channels between lakes or lochs and the ocean.
The caves!
The caves! The Loch Ness monster is using the cave system! Yeah, pretty much. So people just feel like it is possible then that while this might also be a plesiosaur, it's probably either not as big or is not the Loch Ness monster. But similar enough, right?
I see. So like cousins, but not the same.
Exactly. So zoological authorities consulted at the time expressed interest. Dr. C. McLean Fraser, FRSC, head of the zoology department of the University of British Columbia, was of the opinion that until someone gets a lasso around one of these things, we will never be able to get that much farther. It is possible there are such things. Which, you know, we are Canadians. That feels like a very Canadian thing to say. Even in ye old year of 1933.
It is. It's a very yeehaw.
Very yeehaw statement.
Way of phrasing things.
It sure is. And besides traditional stories about Caddy, artifacts attest to Aboriginal knowledge of the creature as well. So this is why they were saying that there's records and stories between family and other people in the area already, because they do have the Aboriginal folks in the area had already been talking about this creature and have art and other things also about this creature. So
I feel like that's usually the case for these types of things.
They're like, oh, we discovered this thing. And then all of our Aboriginal folks are like, yeah, we've been discovering that. That's like old news.
We told you about that like 3 weeks ago.
Awkward. Sorry, Pookie. Nobody told you about the giant sea monster that lives in the area? That's crazy.
Because we definitely did tell you about that.
Yeah, and then
like
you said
10
something
years
about
ago.
that being nonsense, and here we are, and now you're discovering a sea monster. That's crazy. I wonder how that happens.
Wild.
Right? Another what is it? Oh, what's it called? A pattern with my story. It's always that the people are like, oh my god, we discovered this thing, and then it's like, well, actually, there are all of these Aboriginal drawings and stories and cultural works surrounding this, and it's like, okay, so you didn't really discover it, but it's fine. Not really. But it is what it is.
Just take all the credit as usual.
Yeah, what else is new?
No biggie.
Okay. So then, petroglyphs found in various areas of the coast depict an animal similar to Caddy, and so this is not a word in English, so I'm trying my best. An atlatl, which is spear thrower, found in the Skagit Rigger of Washington, and carbon dated to 1,700, give or take 100 years, before the present, also shows an animal resembling the petroglyphs. An important milestone in Caddy lore was the discovery of a strange animal in the stomach of a sperm whale at Queen Charlotte's Islands in 1937. The Naden carcass, so named after the whaling station at Naden Harbor, was thought at the time to be a juvenile caddy, and unfortunately the specimen was lost in transit. So they found what looked like a tiny sea monster inside of a sperm whale, and then it was lost, quote unquote, in transit.
How very convenient.
Yes, right? And a systematic cryptozoological analysis of the evidence for Caddy was included by Heuvelmans in 1968 as part of his worldwide survey on marine cryptids. A more focused regional inquiry was published by LeBlanc and Sibert in 1973 and brought to light a number of new sightings. The creation of the British Columbia Scientific Cryptozoology Club in 1989, which, if you do ever move to Vancouver, the first thing better not be finding a house. It had better be signing up to be a member of the British Columbia Scientific Cryptozoology Club.
I feel like that's more of a you thing.
But that's what I would be living vicariously through you. But you would have to do it.
I see, yeah. Okay, well, I'll get right on that. No worries.
And that was in 1989, which stimulated further inquiries and led to the publication by LeBlanc and Bousfield in 1995, which is an overview of knowledge available at that time. An updated version by LeBlanc, Kirk, and Walton was then published again in 2014, and it contains a list of all documented sightings to the date and statistical analysis of the data. In spite of the accumulated eyewitness reports and attempts at scientific description, Caddy remains a cryptid, an animal whose existence and nature is still in doubt for lack of a specimen. So, there are some theories as to what Caddy might be as cousin to the Loch Ness Monster. And I'm going to go over some of the sightings that people had and some of the animals or creatures that people think Caddy might actually be.
Okay.
So, in 1943, two police officers, Inspector Robert Owens and Staff Sergeant Jack Russell, saw a huge sea serpent with a horse-like head in Georgia Strait. Later, with a pair of binoculars, Sergeant Russell saw that strange apparition was actually a huge bull sea lion leading a herd of about 6 other sea lions. Their undulations as they swam appeared to form one long continuous body, with parts showing at intervals as they surfaced and dived. To the naked eye, the sight perfectly impersonates a sea monster.
That seems reasonable.
Doesn't it? I know. I thought, I read that and I was like, even with pictures of the Loch Ness Monster.
Solved.
Yeah, Emily's stamp of approval. But I was like, I never really thought about that because when we see, or at least when I've seen sea lions before, it's usually at a distance on a rock. I don't ever really see them swim, but they obviously do. So I feel like if you see them swimming and they're all in a line because of the currents or whatever, like geese and how they fly, I could kind of see why that might look like a sea serpent.
Especially since it's probably far off in the distance. It's not right in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Then
we have a giant oarfish. So some suggestions have been made that Caddy could be an example of a king of herrings or a giant oarfish, the Latin being Regalicus glensni, in case you needed to know. And
Wow, I love your Latin.
Yep. It sucks. I'm pretty sure that's not how you pronounce that, but we're going to roll with it. For the Regalecus glinsney. This species can reach 17 meters or 56 feet in length, and it can weigh up to 300 kilograms or 660 pounds. They're long and silvery, and they undulate like a serpent would as they swim through the water, said H.J. Walker, a senior museum scientist at the Scripps Institution of Oceanology, which has several oarfish within its collection. And I know you know what an oarfish looks like, because you can fish them up at Animal Crossing.
Fish? Oh, okay. That's what it is. Yeah, okay. I know what an oarfish is, for sure.
Because that's what I think of the first time. Like, anytime I read the word oarfish, I just think of my tiny little chibi Animal Crossing character holding what's apparently a 660-pound, 36-foot-long oarfish, being like, look what I fished.
I know. Literally, one of the first things that came up for me when I Googled oarfish was an Animal Crossing picture, so... Clearly.
So I'm not the only one. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, we love that.
Mm-hmm. Then we have the carcass of a decomposing basking shark is also often mistaken for Caddy and has fooled both experts and laymen. A rotting basking shark also resembles a decomposing plesiosaur to people who are unaware of what a basking shark dead looks like. Which is interesting.
I don't know that I know what that looks like.
Plesiosaur is like... You would have seen them before when you and I went to the Royal Tyrrell Museum. They're the flipper.
I just saw the bones.
Yeah, the flipper guy. You seen the bones. You were there. You seen.
I just saw his bones.
That was Caddy's grandfather. Show some respect. But yeah, so supposedly during the decomposing process of a basking shark, they do look very similar. I have not seen a live plesiosaur, because that is a dinosaur. And I also not seen a basking shark IRL before, because I am in a landlocked province. But I can only imagine.
And Emily's afraid of caves, especially the underwater ones.
Yes, so she will probably never see that and prefers it that way, actually. That's good news.
Same, honestly.
Right? Okay, so those are the animals or creatures most likely to be Caddy, if not a sea serpent. But I also want to share some of the First Nations accounts of Caddy or of a sea serpent in the area that they have accounts for. So,
right.
A native image that fits Caddy's description has been traditionally used throughout Alaska, particularly. And this image indicates the Caddy or Caddy-like creature moves north to Vancouver when the water's warm. And the Inuit of Alaska have even put a picture on their canoes to keep the creatures away. The Cadborosaurus is called, and I am so sorry, Hayitli'ik by the Manhauset people who live on the Sydney Inlet, Tuchenko, in Suchelt mythology. You are not allowed to laugh at me. You just did an episode in Romanian. And
why do we do this to ourselves?
Because we love to torture ourselves and look stupid on the internet. It's fine. And Numksi Lee Kuala by the Comox Band of Vancouver Island. However, it has also been argued that these native stories reflect a diversity of different animals, and some mythical, some real, and just to lump them into the Cadborosaurus category ignores their diverse origins and often independent backgrounds, which I agree with. Now, here are...
I also agree with that.
Yeah, because that's like, I don't know, I feel like the way that people handle First Nations history, especially with mythology and stuff like that, is handled very poorly, especially in North America. And I'm not, like, just saying that because that feels like the obvious thing to say. We've done so many stories now on the podcast where, especially with cryptids or, like, other things like this, where there is usually a link to First Nation stories, but that does not necessarily mean that every single similar First Nation story is meant to carry that same meaning.
Yeah. I feel like North Americans have a tendency to either ignore or make their stories into commodities.
Yes, exactly. Which sucks. And I do not like it. So, that is what we know, though, pertaining specifically to the Cadborosaurus. And there are additional other sightings, which I'm going to get into here to just cap off our episode here. So there have been more than 300 claimed sightings during the past 200 years, which includes Deep Cove in Saanich Inlet and Island View Beach, both which are also on Saanich Peninsula and the San Francisco Bay, California. So wait a minute. So then it's not just in Canada. Scratch what I said at the start of the episode. I missed this part of my notes.
That's fair. I mean, we're so close, right? That like
I feel like I just read
it's hard
North
to
America,
imagine it, like,
and my brain said
it
Canada.
stops on the border.
Yeah, well, the West Coast too. It makes the most sense. It would just be West Coast. I feel like I read that, I'm like, oh, it's just BC. No, I guess that does include San Francisco and some of these other places. So you can have this one too, America.
Bleh.
I guess.
Lame.
So, in 2009, fisherman Kelly Nash purportedly filmed several minutes of footage featuring 10 to 15, including young, creatures in Nushagak Bay. In 2011, a very short segment of the footage was shown on the Discovery TV show Hill Stranded, where the Hillstrand brothers from Deadliest Catch apparently saw Nash's footage and unsuccessfully attempted to find one of the creatures. And then...
I mean, obviously they didn't get a chance to lasso it, so...
Yeah, I feel like that would have been a very popular episode of the Deadliest Catch if they found a fucking plesiosaur. and lassoed that bitch out of the water. Could you imagine?
And then it just ends with, next week we catch a piranha.
I don't think you can top that. I feel like if you lassoed a plesiosaur out of the ocean, you would never be able to make another episode of that show ever again. That would have to be it.
That would have to be the series finale.
That would
done.
be the Deadliest Catch was a dinosaur, and then the end. There'd be nothing else.
The end.
Yep.
Goodbye. You're welcome.
Right? So that's kind of like a more modernized sighting that I wanted to go over. And then we do have additional carcasses that were also associated with the Cadborosaurus outside of the early documented ones that I went over earlier.
Okay.
So we have the Effingham carcass on Vancouver Island in 1947, which was supposed remains of Caddy. And then we have in 1930... on the 10th of November, at Glacier Island near Valdez, a skeleton was found in ice. The skeleton was 24 feet, or 7.3 meters long, with flippers. Some of the remains were preserved in Cordova for scientific study, but this creature is thought to most likely be a whale. Then we have 1934. In November on Henry Island near Prince Rupert, badly decomposed remains about 30 feet or 9.1 meters long were found by Dr. Neil Carter, and he examined the remains. This creature was identified as a basking shark, which, like we went over earlier, is a common mistake that people make. And then in 1941, a carcass called a Sarah the Sea Hag was found on Kitsilano Beach. W.A. Clemens and Ian McTaggart Cohen identified it as a shark. In 1947, in December at Vernon Bay, Barkley Sound, Vancouver Island, a 45-foot, 14-meter creature was found. This too was identified as a shark. In 1950, in DeLake, Oregon, a creature was found with 4 tails and thick hair. It was identified as a whale shark, which... I don't know how that works.
Hair? Did it have a hair transplant, or was it wearing a toupee?
It actually just came from Hungary. It got some plugs, and then very unfortunately, from Turkey or wherever, and very unfortunately passed away from an infection of the hair transplant, and that's what, this is why we cannot believe everything we see on the internet. These poor whale sharks are getting hair transplants.
Jesus Christ. Leave the whale sharks alone. They're beautiful as they are, which is bald.
And I do have no more information on that, by the way. That's just kind of like a one-off thing where they're like, yeah, we found this. And we think it's a whale shark. And it's like, okay. Weird.
A whale shark with a toupee. Got
yeah,
it.
It's a whale shark with a toupee. Cool. Glad we're all on the same page. And then in 1956... somewhere near Dry Harbor, south of Yucatan, Alaska, a 100-foot, 30-meter long carcass was found with 2 inches or 5.1 centimeters of long hair, and Trevor Kincaid is quoted as saying, "The description fits no known creature." W.A. Clemens identified the carcass as Baird's beaked whale. And again, this is why I say we need to be nicer to the whales. They don't need wigs. Whales don't need wigs.
We got to start a GoFundMe.
We do. And then in 1962, in April near Ucluelet, a 14-foot, 4.3-meter long carcass was found with an elephant-like head. The carcass was dragged ashore by Simon Peter and later thought to be an elephant seal, which would make sense. And... I guess. In 1963, in September, near Oak Harbor, Windby Island, a carcass was found with a head resembling a horse, and A.D. Wieslander of fisheries thought it was a basking shark. Then we have a couple of...
I just looked up basking shark, by the way, and they got a big mouth.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot you can fit in there.
Apparently, like... 3 wigs.
At least 3 whale shark wigs could probably fit in a basking shark's mouth. Oh my god, set me free! Okay. And then, so those are just like discussed sightings, right? They do have 2 also live captures, quote unquote live captures that happened. So, the first...
Did they lasso him?
Well, we're gonna find out. In 1968, in August, W. Hageland claims to have caught a baby caddy near De Courcy Island only to return it to the water because he's a nice guy.
Aww.
And then in 1991, in July, on John's Island, or the San Juan Islands, Phyllis Harsh claims to have caught a small 2-foot, 60-centimeter baby caddy, and returned it to the water because she's a nice lady.
Why do I feel like it was not Caddy and it was just some other random fucking fish?
It could have been a baby basking shark is what I've learned. It could be a whale shark without the wig. It could be...
a bald whale shark.
It could be a bunch of seals going out for a swim. Practicing for the Olympics, I don't know. Yeah. It could be lots of things. But that is my story for you today on what the fuck is the Cadborosaurus and his little...
We still don't know.
And his little mysteries that follow him through the
I'm going to go with
Pacific.
Probably a bunch of seals swimming, but also could be a whale shark in a wig.
Could be a whale shark in a wig. Could be a zombie basking shark. Could be Olympic swimming team, the SEALs.
I like any of these options.
It has to be one of the 3. But what do you...
All great options.
As I told my story for you today, did you find it familiar? Do you feel like you've heard of Caddy before?
I've definitely heard of Caddy. I had definitely not heard of most of the lore that you told me today. Mm-hmm. So next time I go to Vancouver, I will be spreading the lore about these whale sharks and wigs.
See, that's what I'm saying. But
good topical conversation piece.
Very topical. If you liked today's episode, make sure to leave us a review on wherever you're listening to our podcast. As always, 5 stars is appreciated. We also have our website, which is www.wheelcrime.com if you want to check us out on there. We have our Patreon, which is wheelofcrime at Patreon. We have our email, which is wheelofcrime@gmail.com. We have our social media, which is on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok, all at Wheel of Crime. And lastly, if you went to Vancouver and saw a plesiosaur, caught it, and then released it back into the ocean, you should write in and tell us about it.
Or if you saw a whale shark in a wig.
Either or. It's the same thing, apparently. But if that happened to you, and you have to tell somebody, tell us. You might just get a feature in our next listener episode. We do them regularly, and it is a feature of our show, and it is great to have you guys be a part of it. So if you would like, please do that. And besides that, I think that about wraps up our episode here today.
Yes, that's it. That's all. And we'll see you next week for another new episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.